In this video, we're going to dive into the next step of unit creation for the Pen Wargame, looking at each of the individual skills and how assigning points to them can benefit your units. Before you ever assign any points for a unit, each skill is still going to start at least a 1. Movement is also going to start at 3, so you know that your model is going to at least have a chance of success if they roll a 6 on any dice, and they'll be able to at least move 3 inches when they activate on their turn. These are the default values, but you can improve on these default values by assigning skill points from your unit profiles to increase each individual skill, by 1 for each point assigned. Most skills max at 6, although health for squads and minions are limited to 1, and there's no maximum for movement. Movement, like I mentioned, is the number of inches a unit can move per movement action. Note that this is not the amount it can move per turn, because a unit can take a movement action more than once, and it gets 1 movement baked into its turn when it activates. Health is the number of damage a unit can take or a model can take before that model is taken off of the table. For minions and for squads, this is limited to 1, because you're going to be working with at least 5 different models within each unit. But for characters and contraptions, this might increase dramatically to try and increase the survivability of those linchpin units. Accuracy and strength are both pretty straightforward. These are just the flat bonuses that you get on each of your attacks for shots with accuracy and for melee attacks with strength. Conversely to accuracy and strength, resistance and agility are bonuses that you get on 2 different forms of evading damage. Resistance is your model's attempt to just block the damage from strength or from shielding or whatever means they might have. And agility is your model's attempt to dodge the incoming damage. We'll look at the mechanics behind both of these in a later video, but for now, these are just the bonuses that you get for avoiding damage. Arcana is the bonus that your character gets, or your unit in general gets, whenever they take a casting a power action. Casting powers means using those psyker abilities, those Jedi mind tricks, those casting magic spells, whatever the supernatural ability that your character might have, Arcana is the bonus that you get for it. In many cases, this might be a dump stat for your character, because if you're building a unit of clones, for example, they're not really going to use Arcana a whole lot. Or if you're building a dwarven army, maybe a character will be a sorcerer, but your troops might not be as much. On the flip side, though, if you're building a squad of Jedi, maybe they will use Arcana, or a squad of cultists that all might cast spells together. So this can be a really helpful tool, and we'll look at it later in the video on how Arcana works. But for now, all you need to know is this is the bonus you get for using those special powers. And lastly, Vigor is the ability that you have to try and resist special powers, fear, intimidation, and retreating from other units. It doesn't help you get away from damage, generally, but it does help you get away from some of those secondary effects. If something might make your character retreat, such as an attack where they took damage or a characteristic aura ability. If they're being targeted by a spell that might paralyze them or cause them to hurt themselves or cause them to move involuntarily in another direction. Vigor is your unit's ability to resist those effects and basically maintain its status quo. Again, you might not have the luxury of putting a lot of points into Vigor, but for certain powerful units, it can be worth the investment to prevent your opponent from meddling with the way you're using them. This is just a really quick rundown on all of the stats that you're going to find on a character sheet or a unit sheet for the Pen Wargame, but you'll get to decide how these points go in every time you build a new unit. So the configuration is going to be completely different, and the strategies that you lean into will also be completely different. We're going to round out this series on unit creation in our next video, where we look at the characteristics that are really going to flesh out what those strategies look like.